Hey, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by. Today we are going to continue on with our series on Scott and Laci Peterson. There's just there's so much on this one, and since the LA Innocence Project has taken it up, I just feel like it needs a good in-depth look. So we're going to continue on with part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, I definitely recommend going back, checking it out. But let's get into it.
But to judge what is necessary to be told, it is necessary to see and hear all that is to be seen and heard.
Okay, so we are going to pick up at Scott and Lacey moving to Modesto. Now, Scott's parents had helped him out with the down payment on their house, and they ended up moving into a nice little home in Modesto, California. It's a smaller town. Her family actually lived there, and after her grandmother passed away, she wanted to be close to her grandfather, and it felt like it was the right time for them to settle down and start moving on into, uh, life, married life. They started wanting to work on a family, well, Lacey more so, but it just, it was about the time, they were about the age. Scott and Lacey were settling into married homeowner life. Scott got his job as a fertilizer salesman, which legitimately sometimes did take him out of the area. He had to go to different states and I think even internationally a couple times. Lacey became a substitute teacher at one of the local schools there. She already had been doing that prior and it was fun. They remodeled, they added in a pool, they hosted friends and family over for barbecues, and they enjoyed it. It was such a beautiful life. And I want to say, just based on everything, it seems like Lacey had started growing concerned with Scott, thinking that he might be having like kind of a midlife crisis at that point. Lacey wanted to be a mom. She had pushed the idea with him, and even though he had seemed resistant, he ended up giving in and they tried for quite a while. I want to say they tried for at least a year before they were able to actually get pregnant. Lacey really took to her role as a wife, as a homemaker. She took it very seriously. She enjoyed doing baking and cooking. She had actually attended a school in France, a cooking class. So that, I don't know, that sounds exciting. And she was always like into wine and the finer stuff. And she continued on with, working to make her home more friendly, more welcoming, more aesthetically pleasing. She really loved Martha Stewart, and she got like a lot of ideas from watching Martha Stewart. Lacey had been wanting to get pregnant for a while, and even the year prior at the Thanksgiving, her sister-in-law had become pregnant and really excited, and it was kind of that sad feeling for her. She just wanted to have a baby of her own, and her sister-in-law was about to have her second. Now, on June 9th, Lacey woke up really excitedly, took a pregnancy test, and when she saw that it was pregnant, she was over the moon. And Lacey just absolutely loved pregnancy. She always had a smile on her face, and even when she was having difficulty, like with being uncomfortable or not sleeping well, people who knew her just reported that she just always had the biggest smile on her face. She was enamored with the whole idea of, you know, bringing a whole new life into this world. And it's a beautiful time for people who can really actually enjoy pregnancy. I love that. That is so sweet. And you can see it on the pictures that they have of her around this time. Lacey was really excited for the baby, and it seemed, from what she wrote, because she had a pregnancy diary and she put a few entries in there. Scott did attend doctor's appointments with her, and he seemed excited when he was talking to the doctor. It was really exciting for her, but he had a little bit of a holdback, and that's kind of where her idea of him feeling like he was having a midlife crisis or something was happening because Not only was he turning 30, but he also was getting ready to become a dad. So I think for him, well, from what was reported that she had been saying to people, it just seems like she was concerned that he was getting ready to kinda lose it. In that diary that Laci had, that pregnancy diary, she had actually specifically made an entry on October 29th, and that entry had a reference to 2 days prior, October 27th, as that was the first time she said that Scott actually felt the baby kick. And that's an exciting moment, when other people can finally start feeling the baby kick. He She said that he didn't show as much excitement as she thought he would, but she still knew that he was excited. I think she kinda had grown used to the idea of, like, that stoic vision of himself. He just I think I think we will never fully know. In the diary, she does really make it quite clear of her belief that he is excited about the baby. So while all of this is happening in October, Scott actually meets Sean Sibley. Now, he meets her at like a convention, and she's come out and done interviews and said he was kind of a little bit, she felt like he was looking. He was looking for someone, and he actually, some places I saw, she was saying he was intentionally looking for somebody, but it's kind of a he said, she said thing about that from what I was able to find. Sean says that the whole reason that her and Scott didn't initiate anything together was because she was already in a relationship that was a committed relationship. She wasn't looking for anything else, but she did have a friend. Sean was the one that introduced Amber Frey to Scott Peterson. Amber Frey was a single mother. She had an infant daughter, like 22 months old, just a little sweet thing. And she was looking for love herself. She obviously had already been in some kind of burned relationship, being a single mother and everything. She had put herself through school to get her massage therapist license, and that's what she was doing when she met Scott. Sean had shared Amber's phone number with Scott, and after a few weeks, Scott ended up calling Amber, and I don't know why. He's just the vibes that he has are just kind of off, okay? He's kind of weird. Just incredibly, there's just something that makes me go, "What the fuck are you thinking, man?" It's it's the lying thing, okay? Because through all of this, there are, like, lots of little lies that he says all the time. He kind of sets it up like that. So I don't know, it was just really weird because Amber asked him, like, what he looked like, and he gave himself, like, this really unflattering depiction, or what what are you doing that for? That doesn't even make any sense. Why are you being weird? Some people try to, like, psychoanalyze it and say, "Oh, yeah, no, he was doing that because he really didn't want her to reach out." No. No, I don't. I think it was a weird form of flirting, and I just don't understand it. So their phone interactions go so well. They end up setting up a date, and they have their first date on November 20th. Some people get like all weird about Amber and him on that date because they went up to the room and they slept together that first day, but I really don't care. Like, do what you do. She didn't know he was married. He's an asshole for all of that. So, he was an asshole before when he was cheating, and an asshole then when he's cheating. Now, the way that their first date had kind of worked out was Amber had gone up to the hotel room. She had like met Scott at a hotel. They go up to his hotel room, and he takes a shower, and they have like champagne, strawberries, and whatever. Scott and Amber have their date night. They do their thing. Scott ends up, before he leaves, he gives Amber his cell phone number, not the house phone. Remember, back then in 2002, a lot of people still had house phones. Cell phones were much less common at the time, but Scott gives Amber his cell phone number, and he leaves and goes back to pregnant Lacey. Goes back to real life. Scott never actually told Amber that he was married. What Scott did was he just lied. He created this whole like fake identity with her. He said that he had lived in a different city, and yeah, no mention of the wife, no mention of the baby to be. In between Scott and Amber's first date and their second date, Scott took a trip to Disneyland with Lacey and members of his family. There's a recounting from his sister, Amber Bird, about that Disneyland trip that they took. And she describes Lacey as being real happy and bubbly and, you know, normal Lacey. And then she describes Scott as being more withdrawn, staying up in the room more, talking on the phone more. I, from what I was able to find, there was never any proof that he had been talking to Amber on the phone at that time. There wasn't, I didn't find anything. I looked, I couldn't find it. So I don't know exactly who he was on the phone with. I don't know if it actually was really business or maybe there was another girl. Who knows? Scott apparently is a sex addict, so who knows what it was. Now, Ann Bird is actually a pretty important player in this whole story. She is Scott's sister. Now, not a sister that Scott was raised with. She was one of the babies that Scott's mother had put up for adoption before she had kept her third baby and met Scott's dad, Lee, and ended up having Scott. Ann Bird, she had become really close with Lacey over the years. They talked all the time, and she had just had her second baby. She was the sister-in-law that had the baby and was pregnant the same time Lacey found out she was pregnant. That baby had been born in August, so they were very close with their baby ages too. I'm sure that they imagined raising the children together. Lacey had actually talked a lot with Anne about different pregnancy related stuff. She was, into the clothes and just the different feelings of it all and talking about it. It's exciting to be pregnant. It can be exciting to be pregnant, but it's even more exciting just to be able to talk about it. I think that people in general, when they have something they're excited about, it feels good to talk about it. And I think that was a big part of how close their relationship ended up being. Scott doesn't have his second date with Amber until December 2nd. It's said that Scott had told Amber all these different stories about needing to travel to different places between the holidays and work. Some of the places, like Paris, he says that he has to go to Paris. It's just, he makes up a lot of excuses to make it make sense on why he's not available. December 2nd is actually when their second date takes place. Amber made some choices with this. I don't care about her sleeping with him. I am really bothered with the way that she handles her child in this. Their second date, they ended up taking her daughter hiking. And it wasn't even like her friend Sean that had introduced them had known him for a while. Sean had just met him in October. So he was really more of just an unknown person. I couldn't imagine going on a second date with somebody, taking my child with them hiking, like in hiking. That's in the wilderness. No, thank you, especially not with my little one. And then the next day, December 3rd, she gives Scott a key to her place. And then she has Scott pick up her daughter from daycare. I I try to be empathetic. I try to be understanding, but that feels like way too much for me. That is 0 to 100, and the child that's involved in the whole situation, they don't have a say in it. So that just bothered me. Not trying to shame. Like I said, I don't care about her relationship with Scott and that they got physical or whatever. I don't care about that. The baby, that's the thing. That was crazy for me. I guess I didn't actually realize how close in time it was and how little she knew him before she literally gave him the keys to her place. Amber had recounted too just how romantic Scott was. And this is the pattern that Scott shows in all of his prior relationships, even his first infidelity with Lacey. Even that girl, he dated her in college and, he bought her jewelry and made her feel the same way. So it's a trait that is constantly shown from him, that romantic side. I think it was partly this and just, the things that Scott was saying to Amber, but she had already thought that it was going to be a lifetime together. She was already picturing them getting married and she could see him like raising her daughter, doing all of that. So it went very fast for her, and she insisted that Scott had said he felt the same way, and I don't doubt that he said that because he's a liar. He's a liar and he's a romantic. People are out there like that in this world, and I don't wanna be around them. I don't care to know them, but I know that they exist. On December 6th, Sean actually found out that Scott was married. She had talked to some of his coworkers and, yeah, found out that he was married. So she had confronted Scott on this. And Scott comes up with this bullshit line saying that he had lost his wife. And this is fucked up. This is not something that you shouldn't joke about. You shouldn't lie about anything like that, about losing a spouse or a loved one, because that's karma that's going to come back and rip you a new asshole. Sean told Scott that he had to break the news to Amber. He had to let Amber know. No matter if he had lost his wife and this was going to be his first holiday without her, whatever it was that he had told Sean, she told him, it doesn't matter. You need to tell her, or I will. Scott ends up telling Amber on December 9th. So 3 days after he had had that conversation with Sean, he ended up seeing Amber and telling her that he had lost his wife. This is going to be his first holidays without her. Hearing from Scott that he had lost his wife, Amber took it as his wife had died. So she asked him, according to what she reports, she asks him if he wants to have a serious relationship, and he says, yeah. So, that reinforces that whole idea, I imagine, and just being swept off your feet like that, it probably felt really good. And it's just unfortunate for her that it was a lying asshole. The day before Scott had told Amber about him losing his wife, he actually he went on December 8th and he had bought a boat. That little tin boat, the famous boat, or the infamous boat, I guess I should say, that causes so much later on. It varies on who you talk to. According to a source that I had found, there was a witness that said they saw Lacey there that day. It gets Sometimes people try to discredit that by saying, maybe they saw her on a different occasion. This happens a lot in this case, so it's interesting, but regardless, it's contested on whether or not Lacey actually knew about the boat. If you believe the witness, yeah, she was there. Scott had bought that boat for $1,400, and then 2 days later, on December 10th, Lacey goes to a pawn shop and she pawns a gold chain and she gets $140 for it. I don't know why they did that. So when Lacey's grandmother died, she got a bunch of jewelry, which was worth a lot. She had taken it to some jewelers and had them check it out, and they were giving her estimates of upwards over $100,000. Regardless, whatever the reason was, Lacey had gone to that pawn shop that day. That was also the day of her baby shower, December 10th. Lacey, again, just seemed so happy. Everybody that had been there just said it seemed like a really fun time for her. I only saw Anne's retelling of how Scott was that day, and she said that Scott seemed more withdrawn and to himself. I don't know. I would take that one with a grain of salt. I could even see maybe stress of getting ready to have a baby, the stuff that Lacey had seen in him, plus him trying to juggle a double life. On December 14th, Lacey returns to the pawn shop with Scott and they pawn a little bit more. They get $110 from it. Some people try to point to that and say that they were having money problems at the time, but I mean, like I said, Lacey had gotten a significant amount of jewelry from her grandmother when she passed. That was worth quite a bit of money. The jewelers had appraised it around $100,000 or more. So, one thing too that they were doing is she was actually working with those jewelers in trying to have her wedding ring combined with two of her grandmother's rings. So, something that just sounds really cute. I love the idea of that. Either way, the ring that she was trying to design with them, incorporating all 3 of the rings it was like a $55,000, that's like how much it would have been worth, something like that. So, maybe they were hurting for money, but I don't know what to make of all this, to be honest with you. It seems really like they weren't, but who knows? We all know that infamous picture of Scott and Amber, and then the accompanying picture of Lacey by herself. Now, that happens this day, December 14th. Amber had this big holiday party and she had wanted Scott to go with her, but Scott actually had prior arrangements with Lacey that he was going to attend a holiday party with her. Scott told Lacey that he was working late and he ditched that party to go with Amber. What a fucking asshole. I'm just saying, that is an asshole move. You have a really super, like, 8-month pregnant wife. You make her go to a holiday party by herself. Fuck you. That's rude. That's fucked up. But that's what Scott did. So Lacey's mom, Sharon, and her husband, Ron, they come over. They watch the season finale of The Sopranos and they have a pleasant dinner. Lacey takes Sharon upstairs and she shows her the baby nursery and some new clothes. It's exciting for Lacey. She was just over the moon. Her mom was so excited, having her first grandchild from Lacey. And I mean, I think Lacey's older brother already had at least one child. Can't recall directly, but this was Lacey's first child. And I think there's a different kind of bond and feeling that a mother and a daughter would feel in that situation. While they were in the nursery, Lacey had taken Sharon's hand and put her hand on her belly and try to feel Connor's kicks. She had actually, according to Sharon, who is the whole reason why we know about this night and her point of view, Sharon says that Lacey had told her Scott didn't like holding his hand there for very long. And yeah, some guys are not comfortable with the idea of it. Scott was, of course, having, according to Lacey, a midlife crisis about it. So, you know, I I wonder if Lacey felt, like he would feel different when the baby actually came and he could hold the baby and he would lock eyes. That's something that I think a lot of women who have partners like that kind of tend to hope for. What else can you hope for at that point? December 23rd of 2002 is the last day that anyone actually outside of Scott has been taken seriously about seeing Lacey. Literally the best way I can word it, because there are witnesses that say they see her the next day. Lacey had taken a trip to Trader Joe's that morning, spent about $100 on groceries. She was going to make a delicious Christmas dinner and she was planning for the holiday with her family and, of course, with Scott, her last holiday without the baby being born, her first pregnant holiday. I have a feeling she probably, with how much it's said that she enjoyed pregnancy, I have a feeling she probably would have wanted to do it at least another time. So after Trader Joe's, a little bit in the early afternoon, like a little bit afternoon, she went to a salon and she got a waxing treatment. It was like a spa salon. Got a waxing treatment, and the owner there saw her, and what she had commented was that Lacey seemed like she was in good spirits. She did mention like feeling uncomfortable, having a little bit of difficulty sleeping, but still just happy as can be. Later on that day, Lacey and Scott visited her sister, Amy Rocha, at the salon she worked at. Scott would usually go and get a haircut from Amy, and, they'd catch up. Lacey loved being around her family. She was big on family, and of course, that extends to her sister. So they're talking about the holiday plans. Amy had actually gotten a gift basket. She had ordered a gift basket from this nice little store that was closing kind of early the next day, Christmas Eve. It was like 3 or 4 o'clock that they had to pick up the basket by, and Scott had offered to pick it up because he had told her he was going golfing in that area. His plan had originally been that next day to go golfing. At least that's what he had told Amy. Later on, when Amy is asked, she details the outfit that she last saw Lacey in. It included like a thin black shirt and some cream colored, like pants that were probably maternity pants. According to Scott, after they had visited Amy, they went home. Lacey cleaned up a little bit more, getting ready for the holiday party, and then they go to bed. She had, from what Scott had said, she changed out of the pants she had worn that day and she changed into some of his pajama pants, and they go to bed. So we're at December 24th, 2002. This is the most hotly debated day of the whole case. This is the day that everybody has an argument about what exactly happened. Scott says the day started early and things had been fine in the morning. The prosecutors, they feel differently. We are going to pick up with that next time, though. So, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for going through all of this with us. I appreciate your time, and you have a wonderful day.